The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.
Hi Rogers, can I ask you something?
Shoot.
What does corruption mean?
Well, summarily, corruption is abuse of public power for personal gain or for the benefit of a group to which one owes allegiance. For example, when a public office is abused by an official accepting or soliciting a bribe. By the way, private people can be corrupt too, like bribing police officers to escape fines.
Okay. So exactly how does that concern me?
Well, do you pay taxes?
I guess, yeah. What does that have to do with this?
Everything. Because those taxes you pay are supposed to facilitate services you use, like water, electricity, roads construction, medicines in hospitals, name it.
Okay, that is much bigger than I thought. But it can be stopped, right?
Well, yes it can, although it may not be as easy as it sounds. And here is the reason why. Corruption roots are grounded in our country's social, political, economic, bureaucratic traditions and policies.
So, what has kept it going this long? I mean, why don't we stop it?
Well, the main reason why it has been here for so long is because institutions are weak, either as a result of poorly defined ethical standards of public service, weak administrative and financial systems, or ineffective watchdog agencies.
What can we do to stop it?
At a national level, we must focus on strengthening the independence and effectiveness of public institutions that fight corruption. At a personal level, we must commit to never giving a bribe.
I promise I'll never give a bribe.
Well, that's a great decision you have made. Me and you now have to spread this message to all our friends. If we all do our part, corruption will be no more.
This message is brought to you by Alternative Digital. The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.
Good evening and a warm welcome to the Hotline Show. My name is Edgar Matthew Karuhanga. On this day, the 24th day of March, the year is 2025. I welcome you to this edition after a long time without being here. We are back to inform the country as we gear up for the elections. Remember, 2025 is an election year, and you know, every time elections are around the corner in this country, there is a lot that goes on. So today, this evening, we're here to just look at some of the stories that have been happening in the country, Uganda, and of course some of those stories that are still happening even up to today. Remember, as Digital TV, we're here to inform the nation, to make sure that you have factual information. And when someone has factual information, they can be able to make informed decisions for themselves, but also for the next generations. I always tell you that this country, we found it here and we shall leave it here. Uganda is here to thrive for many more years. But the question is, what are you doing to make this country a better place? For yourself first, but also for that one that is going to come back in the near future. A lot of news is happening in the country. Uganda is still having operations in Congo and in South Sudan. We've already made deployments there, and a lot is happening. We shall be talking about that story. The MP-elect for Kawempe North constituency, Elias Nalukola, has not yet been gazetted as a member of parliament, and this comes when the official, electoral body or the Electoral Commission of Uganda saying that they do not have resources to gazette Council Nalukola. I saw the Secretary General for the National Unity Platform, David Leus Rubongoya, visiting the Electoral Commission offices to ask why this is happening. We shall be also talking about that. And as we're gearing up for the election cycle, NRM is getting stronger because you're seeing many crossings from FDC joining that particular political party. I also saw some members of the National Unity Platform, although that particular body said they are not their members, but they were also crossing at an NRM rally. What does this mean for the election cycle that is happening? And of course, there is something that is saddening in this country, the beating of journalists that we saw happening in the Kawempe North elections. Many journalists from various media houses. Apologies, gentlemen. Sorry. Let me just.
The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk. The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.
Hi, Rogers. Can I ask you something?
Shoot.
What does corruption mean?
Well, summarily, corruption is abuse of public power for personal gain or for the benefit of a group to which one owes allegiance. For example, when a public office is abused by an official accepting or soliciting a bribe. By the way, private people can be corrupt too, like bribing police officers to escape fines.
Okay. So exactly how does that concern me?
Well, do you pay taxes?
I guess, yeah. What does that have to do with this?
Everything. Because those taxes you pay are supposed to facilitate services you use, like water, electricity, roads construction, medicines in hospitals, name it.
Okay, that is much bigger than I thought. But it can be stopped, right?
Well, yes, it can. Although it may not be as easy as it sounds. And here is the reason why. Corruption roots are grounded in our country's social, political, economic, bureaucratic traditions and policies.
So, what has kept it going this long? I mean, why don't we stop it?
Well, the main reason why it has been here for so long is because institutions are weak, either as a result of poorly defined ethical standards of public service, weak administrative and financial systems, or ineffective watchdog agencies.
What can we do to stop it?
At a national level, we must focus on strengthening the independence and effectiveness of public institutions that fight corruption. At a personal level, we must commit to never giving a bribe.
I promise I'll never give a bribe.
Well, that's a great decision you have made. Me and you now have to spread this message to all our friends. If we all do our part, corruption will be no more.
This message is brought to you by Alternative Digital.
The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.
That short commercial break, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Edgar Matthew Karanga, and you are watching the Hotline Show on this 24th day of March. The year is 2025. A lot of things are happening in the country, and we shall be touching base on those and more, starting from the deployments that are happening in Congo and Sudan, but we'll also look at the elections, especially the election cycle that we are gearing up to, and a season that is oftentimes characterized by violence, imprisonments, and sometimes even death. How can this be solved? And of course, this country has experienced in the recent past a beating of journalists. Why is this happening? And why are the security forces that are meant to protect Ugandans being the ones to meet the violence on these journalists that are doing their job? What can be done? We shall be talking about that and much more this evening. I am joined by a normal panel that we always have here, a panel full of gentlemen. Just near to me is Honorable Joseph Ochieno from the Uganda People's Congress. He is acting chairperson there. Of course, we also have the NRM Director, External Affairs. That is Major Retired Pollar Awich from the National Resistance Movement. And last but definitely not least is Sam Kazooba, who is the Executive Director for the Center for African Affairs and Diplomatic Studies. You're most welcome, gentlemen.
Good to be here, except I'm not an acting chair.
Yes, sir.
I am actually the president of Uganda People's Congress and declared. So we do not. The position of chairs are appointed positions who lead the National Council, meaning the parliament of the party.
Okay.
And even then, it would not be acting because that would be temporary in a way.
Thank you so much. So the president, can I say one of the UPC factions?
You could call it president of, yeah, if you want to call it faction, but I've said that there are two factions of the party, Jima Kena's faction and Wallabi's faction. Those are factions. In my case, I went through the formal process, got elected. The matter is in court, and I don't want to consider myself a faction because I will be either declared president or I'm not.
All right.
Yeah.
I am with Joseph Ochieno, the president of the Uganda People's Congress. And just give us your opening remarks, sir, as I move on.
Thank you for having us, and thank you for having me after a very long time. As I said, we are sort of a usual panel here. We've been around for some time. But I don't know whether, for the record, you want to say to your viewers that you've got a new studio, and your new studio is fantastic for our viewers. We are delighted by the manner in which you've done your works, and good luck to yourselves as a new establishment. But I also want to say that in terms of the work that you do, we hope that you gain more traction, and with it you're able to claim your critical center space nationally as part of the leading spaces where we can come and have a conversation and exchange with the citizenry, and a conversation that is inspiring, and a conversation that is constructive, and a conversation that will help move this country beyond where we are at the moment, the kind of stalemate in which we are. I know tropically we are going to go there.
Yes, sir.
But of course, yes, while we're away, for me, I have a list of experiences I've gone through, a series of bereavements, many very sad. We've gone through the by-election because you asked, we've been very sad about whatever happened in Kawempe. And I can also tell you that within the last couple of days, I have seen cases where families have suffered in Kampala directly as a result of failure of institutional systems of governance. And if we are here to have this conversation nationally, then I think that I will want to welcome my colleagues and begin to have the conversation in detail.
Thank you, sir. Major Pollar, which your opening remarks, sir?
Well, my opening remark, of course, is to thank God for having kept us and brought us this far. We were in the old studio, which was good, but this is better. This is state of the art, and I believe you will host many Ugandans who will come here. And also our viewers should feel free to view us more, because this is a state of the art studio. A lot has happened from my side. Since that time, I've been in the north doing the digitalization of NRM.
Oh.
I ran actually in Lango region.
What do you mean the digitalization of NRM?
Digitalization means you have a hard book register.
Yes.
Now that hard book register turns to software.
Okay.
So that you no longer rely on the book, but you can as well check Ukelo Peter from Agago, who is NRM in a particular village. You can check it online. So that is to change from hard copy to soft copy. So I was in charge of Lango and Acholi, and that is the 10 districts of Lango and the 9 districts of Acholi. Those are 19 districts. And now we are doing final proofreading at the headquarters. So we are moving so well, and we do hope that when we have a perfect, or not perfect, we can never be perfect, when we have a fairly good register, we shall therefore hold our elections, structures, and including flag bearer, with minimal complaint of rigging in the internal party. That would reduce other things. And then also, as a party, we have intensified, in my mandate, external affairs. We have done quite well. Last week, we hosted the European Union ambassadors, all the European Union ambassadors in my office. We had a good talk on Plot 10, Shadow on the Road. And we identified issues that need cooperation, challenges that need answering. We also met the British High Commissioner, Lisa, and even the Americans. So we are fairly doing well in my mandate of external affairs to share a lot with the stakeholders.
Okay.
So I'm happy to be here in this very extremely nice studio.
Thank you, sir. The pleasure is ours. Mr. Kazooba, your opening remarks, sir.
Thank you for inviting me once again. I was, when Major was speaking, and my mind was like, so they are going to put all NRM members online. But you know that there are some who don't want to appear as members. For instance, if you have judges who are registered NRM members, how does it affect their career? That is what I'm asking. If you find
it looks like you are claiming.
Then if you find members of NUP, especially in senior positions, who are also registered NRM members, how does it work out? I don't know now. But
do you want him to answer you?
Technology has come. We should all embrace it. I think digital.
Yes, sir.
Some time I haven't been around. I'm back, and it's good. I'm feeling quite proud starting again in a new place. Thank you for the progress. You've entered the new premises, which are quite better than where we used to meet. And I'm hoping that the new premises will also bring a new programming.
Okay.
That side, I've been away since January. I and some people from academia, from different sections of society, we've come together to organize what we've called the Civil Military Symposium. Because of what you are seeing within the public domain, the confrontations between soldiers and civilians, they're not very good for a country. So in our contribution to governance, we are putting in place this symposium so that we can have a honest discussion and put in place a way forward
Okay.
So we are working with different actors. We also intend to invite the head of state to be part of this thing, maybe as a chief guest. We shall also invite the CDF and see how they fit into our program, because we do not want this country to burn. The civilians, especially the youth in urban centers, are quite confrontational nowadays. They even beat up soldiers. It was unheard of that a soldier belonging to SFC could be beat up by people in the civilian space. But nowadays it is becoming common. So it means there is no more fear. But the civilians, the soldiers are also saying, look, you guys, we shall deal with you. And when the warning comes in, you see what is happened in Kawempe. So these things, to de-escalate the situation, we feel there has to be a honest conversation.
What achievements do you want to make out of this symposium, this meeting? What do you want to achieve after?
What we intend to achieve is that there should be a working relationship between the military and civilians to make sure that our country remains safe and stable. That is all that we want. Yes.
Okay, no problem. Thank you so much, gentlemen. And I'm going to start with you, sorry, to put you on the spot, sir, because you are an expert in diplomatic affairs. And I wanted us to start with the operations in Congo and South Sudan. First of all, we have been deployed in Congo for a while now. And recently, there was a battle between Codeco and Uganda's military UPDF. And I think 242, according to the Ministry of Defense of this country, militias lost their lives, and Uganda lost one, according to that report. And of course, we even had the news of the commander, that is Colonel David Biaruhanga, who lost his life in battle. My question to you is, is this our war to fight? Or our battle to fight? Do you think we need to be in the AD? Is that a valid reason to really be in Congo? Do we have a valid reason?
Sorry, I know that you are, James, as he comes in.
Yes, sir.
I think it's important to put the urgent disclaimer, that the point that James made, and of course, versus being in diplomacy. Judges are not supposed to be members of political parties, and our lawyer friend who will not help us here. So if there are any judges out there who are members of any political party, as far as I'm concerned, that is unacceptable.
Exactly. It's a question
I have no so they shouldn't be, and I don't expect them to be. Okay. But I know we have cadre judges, just like I know we have cadre priests. Okay. But judges shouldn't be. But anyway, there you go.
Please go on.
So if I'm a member of NRM, while still a lawyer, and I'm appointed a judge, do I denounce my party?
You don't denounce. Ideally, under UPC administration, under normal circumstances, you should be able to basically withdraw your membership. Doesn't mean you don't vote for them. Yeah, it doesn't mean you don't vote for them. And that's an important point, because this is a predominantly young channel, and even as part of the programs that you're suggesting that you're seeking to do, and that the three of us plus our host plus the fantastic young guys, and I must say to the viewers, the young guys who run this program, the idea is basically we are seeking to create an enabling environment in which we push for a new Uganda, and a Uganda in which there is rule of law.
Okay, sir.
I think he has pretty answered that. First of all, the law applicable is there, which governs participation in political parties. The law applicable is there, and not only covering NRM, but all political parties, like he says it. For example, serving army officers or serving military, they are not supposed to be. So not only the judges, but even the military officers, they are not supposed to be. So we don't register that. Now, for political parties, our program is that the lowest unit is called a branch in the village. And this village recruiting people are given checklists. If somebody is a known member of another political party, we don't register him in our party. And so the question of double registration doesn't arise, because in that branch we are supposed to hold what is called a baraza. A baraza is a village meeting of members of the party who will scrutinize. Do we meet the checklist? Is he a serving army officer? Is he a member of another political party? Or is he even dead? Because we check the list, we don't want to have on our list dead people. So these issues are dealt with at the initial stage through what we call a baraza. We have the do's and do nots. The checklist is there, and the checklist is derived from the law applicable. Okay. So everything is clear at that level.
So I think,
but for confidentiality, of course, for those, even an ordinary member, we manage our confidentiality. We release it as and when. But before you even go to Okello Peter, a normal Okello Peter who is a member of the party, and you keep his confidentiality, he should have met the checklist as by law. Okay. No, so we don't recruit you against the law and protect you. No, we first recruit the lawful recruitment and protect you.
Okay. Mr. Kazooba.
Number one, I'm an African. So my belief is, if a fellow African is in trouble,
yes, sir,
I should be able to help. It's from that point that Pan-Africanism was formulated, both as an ideology, but also as a movement. So for Ugandan forces or UPDF intervening in DRC, South Sudan, and other countries, in my opinion, if it is done within the confines, of course, of diplomatic arrangements, for instance, if President Tshisekedi Felix asks his colleague here, President Museveni, for help, then it is understandable. Of course, the deployment should be followed later on by parliamentary approval. You don't first wait for parliamentary approval, then you deploy, because at times
you can't.
It's so urgent that you have to be there in time.
Yeah.
Now, the eastern part of DRC has been problematic for decades.
Yes, sir.
And both neighboring countries of DRC, but also other African countries, have attempted to intervene and stabilize that part of the country in vain because of competing interests. But mostly those interests are economical.
Yes, sir.
DRC is a very rich country, and quite a number of countries want to tap into the resources within DRC. So in my humble opinion, number one is that I support the deployment. Now, what UPDF does there, what would say its conduct, that is another issue. How is UPDF conducting itself in DRC? Okay,
but you agree that there is a valid reason for us to deploy in Congo?
Well, there is. Actually, you know, when Felix Tshisekedi came in as head of state, he promised to deal with the insecurities in Eastern Congo. That was key on his manifesto in his first term of office. What he didn't do was have a clear plan on working with the neighboring countries like Uganda, Rwanda, and Burundi, and also South Sudan. Because what should have happened should have been to empower the Congolese army. The Congolese army is very weak and therefore cannot protect its citizens against threats. So they should have first dealt with empowering the Congolese army. That means recruitment, retraining, and also expanding in terms of numbers, so that the presence of the Congolese army is everywhere within DRC.
Okay.
That Felix Tshisekedi could not do. He focused on bringing in foreign armies to help him flush out the rebels. But now some of the groups he's talking about are saying we are not foreigners, we are not, we didn't come from outside the DRC, we actually Congolese, a group like M23. That has become problematic for Felix Tshisekedi.
Okay. I think you've painted a good picture. And I
genuinely don't understand before I come in.
No, you are coming in now.
No, but I genuinely don't, because I need to give Charles this opportunity to clarify to the viewers. What is the basis of NRA being in Congo? Because Tshisekedi failed?
No, but they said they are fighting the ADF who are there, so it was a preventive measure.
Did Charles say that
to go.
No,
I'm giving the reason why.
No, let me answer that.
Because that's
let me answer that.
Yes, sir.
I told you, UPDF has never invited itself into DRC.
They have ever done so.
Anyway. Not under Felix Tshisekedi.
All right, okay.
It has always been an arrangement between the heads of state. At times, it is under the East African Community Framework.
Now let's look
but
at this
also
case.
under bilateral
let's go on this
arrangement.
case of the deployment. I think it's Museveni who actually even reached out to say let's enter Congo, and Felix Tshisekedi gave them a leeway to enter.
Usually there will be discussions that are not publicized.
Let me bring in Ochieno, Honorable Ochieno. Why do you think it's not okay to deploy in Congo as Uganda?
No, we are an independent sovereign nation state.
Yes.
That can, at the moment, within the last 2 days, so a close member of my family,
yes,
in a very difficult way, pay out nearly 300,000 shillings to a local private health facility within Kampala, rushed in crude traffic. I took them, good enough I was within range, I took them in my car. And by that I didn't do the flash thing, which I could have done really, but it was that scary. For a child to seek basic medical attention as a result of the usual bacterial infections that children suffer. 300,000 shillings is salary for average 2 people, particularly 2 Askaris who are predominantly from Water, northern Uganda. But definitely, I know graduates who earn 250,000 shillings in Kampala. It's a lot of money. It's simply because we lack basic medical facilities and services in this country. Who is paying for the deployment of NRA in Congo? Who?
You and me.
Yes. Yeah. Is that our priority? It's not. Last weekend, I buried, because I'm the lead of my family, buried the eldest Ochieno, named after our great-grandfather, the oldest Ochieno alive, so I'm now the eldest. The guy died at an advanced age. But it was as a result of basically having dislocation that continued with huge amount of pain. Something that I know, another retired doctor, actually one of the doctors who's watching me now, who sent me a note to remind me about networks and systems. But as a retired big doctor with the UN and others, he broke his leg but managed to recover because partly his private health care, he was able to get himself recover. But this one broke. This one basically dislocated and died. Why? Because of lack of medical facilities. And let me tell you this Ochieno, and I've talked about him. This Ochieno is one of those people who went to Luweero in the 70s, got the courtesy of Buganda, who were quite supportive, generally quite supportive about other identities in Luweero, settled, became a very rich farmer, apparently even became a Mutaka chief. I didn't know that until last week when he died, became a Mutaka chief in Bulemezi. But when Museveni and his bunch came to Luweero, they targeted, as I said, UNLA government soldiers, followed by UPC leaders, and then the third, people of northern and eastern extraction, as targets of hate. Ochieno narrowly escaped, this is official, narrowly escaped with 7 children, left everything. They had settled there, a huge amount of wealth. And this guy died in abject, almost close to abject poverty in Agongera. Lack of medical facilities and attention to and for him. That, in my opinion, is a priority. This regime has failed. He failed him, they failed him. And by the way, the people of Padola, the people of Tororo, who were chased away from Buganda, pushed by NRA and NRA regime policy, are amongst the people who have not been compensated yet. And part of the reasons for failure of compensation is arguments, budgetary restrictions. I'm giving you context. Budgetary restrictions. Now, recently, in the last week, I didn't want to introduce it because we're in a new environment. You know, supplementary budgets, trillions of shillings. You know, part of the argument we're making, why the supplementary budget? Why the supplementary budget? Trillions of monies go into the coffers that we don't know, almost certainly to feed war in Congo, to feed war in South Sudan.
What you're calling to feed war in Congo, one is calling it to protect Ugandan citizens. You remember the students who were killed in Kasese? You remember the daughter of Katumba, Minister Katumba Wamala, who was shot here in Kampala? You remember the twin bombs that happened? All these operations were from the ADF. And your army is saying, instead of having these people come and terrorize our country, let's go to where they are and try to do a preventive, measure. What's wrong with that? Isn't that a priority enough?
Mr. Karanga, could you just give me one slight second? You are arguing otherwise when it comes to UPDF deploying outside the country, isn't it? Are you also suggesting that it was a mistake, for instance, for Tanzania and Mzee Nyerere to sponsor, fund, train anti-mine activities that were spearheaded by President Obote, former President Obote?
It's commonsensically obvious. I'm not, and I've never, and I don't think the two are parallel the same.
They are the same.
No, they're not. And in any case, the case I'm making against deployment is not an average case that an average Tanzanian could make. But in any case, that's a matter of Tanzania.
Let's come back to the issue.
That's correct. And I'm putting for you this in context. What really are the key priorities? What the key priorities, in my opinion, are the basic services here. Number 2, the fact that this is a dubious mission in Congo, which is not clear. Kazooba may have the privilege of understanding why the deployment there. You may have, no, I'm coming to you.
Yes.
You may have the privilege of linking this with the bombings in Kampala. But you're a journalist. We can go to the list of stories Mr. Museveni has told us since the twin bombings. And you may go on to the listing, including telling us who killed Katumba Wamala's daughter. In any case, actually, if Katumba Wamala's daughter was killed by terrorists,
that's what the state says. ADF.
You asked me a question, you have to allow me to. If that's the case, then quite clearly the deployment in Kawempe was substantially misplaced. These hooded guys, including tanks in Kawempe, it should not have been in Kawempe. Those should be resources that we should be able to mobilize for strategic national security and to make sure that we don't have the people who are terrorizing us that you refer. In any case, actually, I don't know what the latest, my 2 colleagues may be able to tell us whether or not it has been established that the people who killed Katumba's daughter are guys from ADF.
That's what the head of state said.
Well, and as I said, I don't know, because there are two things.
Yeah.
You asked me as a leader of a political party, by the way, that's why I'm here. But I'm also here as Ochieno, the Ugandan citizen, also with many heads. And as a Ugandan citizen, I'm trying to tell you
Yes,
that
sir.
I am not satisfied. No fair case has been made. Why, for example, Ugandan soldiers are being sent to die in South Sudan. No case has been made to me, sufficient enough to tell me why Ugandan soldiers are dying in Congo. So, by the way, these are my people, these are our people. So, away from money, away from equipment, this is the case I'm making.
Yes, sir.
Ugandans need to know why we're deploying in Congo. It has not been, the case hasn't been
Let
made.
me
My
move-
suspicion, as Charles said, is that the deployment down there are fronts to go ahead and loot Congo, fronts to make money for particular individuals in Uganda and in the region. I am saying
Yes, sir.
that even the last 1 week when we were having a conversation about supplementary budgets, we know that some of these monies are going to feed these wars, while Ugandans can hardly afford basic health services, basic education. Before I came to your studios, I was talking to a young graduate, who in the last 7 years has failed to get a job, and right now what they're doing is selling chips down the road in order to keep and sustain themselves.
Okay, thank you. You're still watching the Hotline Show, 15 minutes to the top of the hour. I am Edgar Matthew Karuhanga. Let me come to you, retired Major. UPDF is in South Sudan, as we said. Congo is in Equatorial Guinea. They're in Somalia. Should we boast of a strong force, or are we biting what we cannot even take? What do you think, sir?
Well, thank you so much. It is good that you have not asked me the previous questions about the justification of the war, whether it should be there or not, or what we're doing there, whether it is called for or not. Now you have asked me about the capacity to sustain what you call, should we boast about the strength?
We are too many, in too many countries.
Too stretched.
Of course, first of all, I would, in passing, also put my words about the justification.
Please do.
The justification of being there is that if we left Congo and say, watch from Ugandan side, the truth is that whatever is being incubated there will eventually come here. So it would be like we are just putting our head in the sand. I'm told the ostrich, when you chase it in the desert, it gets tired and hides the head and assumes that the body is not seen. So if we choose as a military doctrine or as a military philosophy to say, we are not entering there, we shall keep at our border, is that a sustainable strategy? Or you rather have a preemptive approach? Now this preemptive approach, is it, how do you carry out with the blessing of the other country or unilaterally enter? So you agree with the other party and said ADF is there, we have chosen the option of not locking ourselves at the border and waiting so that this thing incubates, they do their training, they multiply in battalions, in brigades, so that by the time we try to do it, possibly we are fighting the war in Bushenyi, which actually did happen, and Kamwenge, which did actually happen. And when you are now fighting the war here, you see the destruction. So the option and the approach taken by NRM and the NRM government, which won election in 2021, is that the military chose the other option of preemptive. And as long as we do it with the other government and makes it legitimate. Now, I want to comment about what my colleague here says about the Africans defending the other African. That is not our approach. We are not going to defend Congolese. That is not what we are doing. It seems that is the doctrine pursued by Rwanda. Why do I say this? I have heard from Andrew Mwenda. Andrew Mwenda seems to to put the the way Russia went to Ukraine, because in Ukraine there were Russians or Russian speaking. So if you have in a Congo Tutsi speaking, then you justify that. But that is not the NRM approach. Because if we were to do that, if we took it upon ourselves to be the policeman, to police across the boundary, we wouldn't sustain. Why? Because in our constitution, third schedule provides tribes or communities, 65. Now, each of these communities spills across the border, except mine, the Langis. You as Batora in Congo with the kingdom. You as you are, Obama in Kenya.
He's boasting now.
Obama in Kenya is his brother. So if Uganda was to take that philosophy, then we would have to run all over the country, because the way the British did it, all our communities except the Langis spill across. So we have not yet taken that doctrine of saying we go and defend there. The position here is we have our enemies there, we agreed with them. And that is why wherever UPDF is operating together with the Congolese army.
Okay.
So far that is what
let's
has
look
happened.
at it from the bigger perspective, not just Congo alone. Let's look at Equatorial Guinea, because you are also there. Let's look at Sudan. Are there people that are threats to the Ugandan people themselves, or are you now acting as a hired mercenary force?
Maybe I delayed too long to come to that answer, but I was coming. I had dealt with the justification of the war, and had gone to state the position vis-a-vis going. That was my second point. Now the third point is actually answers your thing in the all this, do we have the capacity? Maybe is the justification the same? Now let me deal with the capacity. The capacity is there. I can start with human resource. You must have known that in one electoral campaign, President Museveni had put clearly his manifesto of professionalizing the army.
Yeah, 2000.
Yeah, indeed the army was professionalized. Professionalizing the army here meant the type of training, the reorganization of the organization of the army into, let's say, Air Force, infantry, marine, artillery, like that. But also bringing in human resource. This was done. The son of Kaguta stood to his words, like he always does, he professionalized. Now, you must have also realized that yearly now, Uganda has taken to the professional way of retiring soldiers every year. But remember also, as we retire, we bring in new recruitment. So the army is professionally running with retiring the old, recruiting the new. So the arms of the army is fully fledged. So no worry about capacity in terms of personnel. Now in terms of logistics, we have the capacity that you would know that each unit, whether Air Force, Marine, Infantry, what is there. So about capacity is well catered for.
Money?
Now, including money. Including money. Now,
classified budgets.
Including money, and that's why we go to Parliament. Now, the other thing is about you're asking about other places.
Why
like,
are you acting like a mercenary force?
Because first of all, we are not acting as mercenary force. It is in your thinking. Yes, it is not true that we are acting as a mercenary force.
What are you doing in Equatorial Guinea? What are you doing in South Sudan?
The facts about Equatorial Guinea is not within my knowledge, and therefore I can't even discuss it. The facts about Equatorial Guinea
it could be
is
mercenary,
not,
but you can't comment.
No, I don't even know it. Okay. Because if I got to know it, since we are here weekly, I would provide it, but now I don't know. But all I know is Central African Republic, for example, was, and even up to Chad, if you may, it was when Kony left South Sudan. Kony left South Sudan, or stayed in South Sudan, went in Eastern Congo a bit, went to Central African Republic, and was even continuing to charge. So this was the pursuit on coin. That is why we're in Central African Republic. And the whole belt. So that is the whole belt. So that is why we are justifiably. So justifiably we are there. Now, in the case of South Sudan, in 2014, government signed a state of forces agreement with South Sudan, and that is a requirement of the law under the UPDF Act, that where UPDF is operating with a country or multi-organization, for example, UN, still the minister is required to sign an agreement with UN to say UPDF is operating with you. If it is bilateral between two countries, Uganda and South Sudan, the Minister of Defense should sign that. And in 2014, it was signed. The status of the forces agreement between the two countries. So that is that agreement that is still subsisting, and that is why we are there, legitimately. Now, do we do this at the expense of service delivery? No. Because Congressman seems to allude or even explicitly say that when we deploy or have a state of the forces agreement, and some state of forces agreement with a particular country or with UN could even state areas of logistics. For example, if Uganda signed a state of forces agreement with United Nations, United Nations will say we're providing uniform, we're providing food, we're providing. So you need to unpackage the status of forces agreement and see it. And like now, we are not yet privy to the status of forces agreement with South Sudan. You could even find that some of these matters are covered in the detailed agreement. So like UN does it, wherever we have operated and it is covered by UN. So then this would even, if we lift the veil and looked at the status agreement, it could answer some of these questions which we are not privy to now. Okay. But these are done in clear understanding. Okay. So services like health is not left behind. The budget runs for health, the budget runs for education, and each of them run. So we don't do it as a government at the expense of the other.
So it's not that you've taken from here to put here. Okay.
Not at all.
Charles, as we go to the break, please conclude on that issue. But also, as a country, what do we do in this particular situation?
I wanted first to correct Major Awich, not to misrepresent my argument. When I said when I'm an African, I should help an African. I wasn't looking at the issue from the lenses of tribalism. No. I'm looking at states on the African continent. We should understand that the leaders on the African continent, senior leaders, including President Museveni, have been calling for a NATO of Africa, having a force that protects Africa from external threats, but also dealing with these internal issues. Now, in the absence of the NATO of Africa, a UPDF emerges because of its capacity, which you cannot doubt.
Does it have the biggest capacity?
Mohos is going to be very happy today.
Is it the strongest?
No, I'm saying,
please.
If you see the way UPDF is organized, it has dealt with the Somali issue.
Yeah.
When everybody was just spectating, you cannot doubt it.
It's strong, yes.
Everywhere UPDF has gone,
yes,
they have been able to deal with the challenges there. So you cannot doubt its capacity. However, they also face some challenges. And citizens, when citizens say, you guys, you are busy dealing with outside the problems. It's like, I mean, your father buying meat for a neighbor, but you are feeding on beans. You feel jealousy. However, I think they are looking at the bigger picture, that a stable Africa improves internal trade, trade amongst states, and ultimately the profits of that trade seep into the welfare of citizens.
Thank you so much. You have some.
I know we really have to go on break.
Just a minute, yes.
But look, I am both a scholar of conflicts and also officially a diplomat, except not aligned to a nation state. And by the way, Comrade Awich, a nation state once attempted to persuade me to represent them, but of course I was not willing to let go my Ugandan diplomatic papers, some of the things for review. I genuinely am a Pan-Africanist. I genuinely don't, and I'm a founder member as Uganda Post Congress of the Organization of African Unity. I don't see how the conversation we're having today helps the Pan-Africanist agenda. If we are to help the Pan-Africanist agenda, we must push for the democratization across the continent, constitutionalism and rule across the conflict.
Okay.
Deal with root causes of conflict across the African continent.
Okay.
In a case like Sudan, I know we need to go in South Sudan. We should be supporting the peace process rather than supporting one side, which even pushes that at the threat of being at war, facing arms with the likes of others, Ethiopia and things like that. And as far as Uganda and Museveni is concerned, it has got a terrible record.
Thank you.
We have actually invaded neighbors. Pan-Africanists don't invade.
He's saying it's a Pan-African force.
No, of course they're not. And I have to say,
Let's take a break now,
they
ladies
don't
and gentlemen.
invade.
When
And nor
we
do
come
they invade
back, we come back
for other
with the
continents.
politics.
Yes.
We're talking about the elections in Kawempe, and of course we're looking at the general roadmap of the 2026 elections. Let's take a break right about now.
The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.
Hi, Rogers. Can I ask you something?
Shoot.
What does corruption mean?
Well, summarily, corruption is abuse of public power for personal gain or for the benefit of a group to which one owes allegiance. For example, when a public office is abused by an official accepting or soliciting a bribe. By the way, private people can be corrupt too, like bribing police officers to escape fines.
Okay. So exactly how does that concern me?
Well, do you pay taxes?
I guess, yeah. What does that have to do with this?
Everything. Because those taxes you pay are supposed to facilitate services you use, like water, electricity, roads construction, medicines in hospitals, name it.
Okay, that is much bigger than I thought. But it can be stopped, right?
Well, yes it can, although it may not be as easy as it sounds. And here is the reason why. Corruption roots are grounded in our country's social, political, economic, bureaucratic traditions and policies.
So, what has kept it going this long? I mean, why don't we stop it?
Well, the main reason why it has been here for so long is because institutions are weak, either as a result of poorly defined ethical standards of public service, weak administrative and financial systems, or ineffective watchdog agencies.
What can we do to stop it?
At a national level, we must focus on strengthening the independence and effectiveness of public institutions that fight corruption. At a personal level, we must commit to never giving a bribe.
I promise I'll never give a bribe.
Well, that's a great decision you have made. Me and you now have to spread this message to all our friends. If we all do our part, corruption will be no more.
This message is brought to you by Alternative Digital.
Go to the church, though.
Tawali man, what's up?
Man, can you imagine people just dump everywhere? Someone drinks water and throws the bottle wherever.
Come on, Rogers. What else do you expect people to do with an empty bottle?
Simanya now, recorder. Did you know that plastics take at least 450 years to decompose?
What? That's a long time.
Exactly. Because plastics are made out of a lightweight and flexible material that doesn't decompose easily. And plastics everywhere in the environment cause plastic pollution.
What is plastic pollution now?
It is the accumulation of plastic waste in the environment, like bottles, polythene bags, straws. All of these contribute to plastic pollution.
I have been using them without knowing their effect.
Yeah, a lot of people have. Plastics are a danger to the ecosystem, both on land and in water.
So how can we overcome this problem? Is there something we can do?
Oh yes, we can reduce by minimizing the use of plastics, reuse by repurposing them, or recycle by collecting and processing them into new products.
Everyone wants to change the world, but no one wants to change themselves for the world.
How about we change our habits for the world?
And it starts with me and you.
This message is brought to you by Alternative Digitalk.
The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.